When you've been married long enough, you start to believe there's nothing left that could really surprise you. You think you know every sigh, every small silence, every way they stir their coffee. That's what I used to think, until the night Daniel looked at me across the kitchen table and said he wanted something different. It was late, the kind of quiet that only happens when the dishwasher hums and the street outside is still wet from rain. Our son was already asleep. I remember the smell of dish, soap, and coffee, and the way Daniel couldn't quite meet my eyes. He said, "I've been thinking about us." And then nothing. Just that. You'd think after 21 years together, I'd know what to say next. But all I could manage was okay, and that pause felt longer than it should have. We weren't falling apart. At least, I didn't think we were. Sure, we'd been distant, the kind of quiet that fills a house slowly, without anyone noticing until it's already thick in the air. But we still laughed sometimes, still texted each other about groceries and bills. The ordinary kind of love. The safe kind. But that night, something in Daniel's voice wasn't ordinary. He finally looked up and said, "I need to tell you something. But promise you won't get angry." That's the thing about promises like that. You already know you're going to break them. He told me he'd met someone. Not in a romantic way, he said. Not like that. But she'd made him realize he wanted more out of life. That maybe we should open things up. He actually used those words, open things up. For a moment, I thought he meant therapy. I even laughed, quietly, like maybe it was some bad joke. But when he didn't smile back, the room seemed to shrink around us. There was a long, uncomfortable sound, just the refrigerator humming, and me trying to breathe like everything was fine. I remember tracing my finger along the rim of my coffee mug, trying to think of something sane to say. Anything. He said her name then. Claire. She was younger, 26, maybe 27. Someone from work. And here's the part that still echoes in my head. He said he didn't love her. He just wanted to see what it felt like to be wanted again. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not yet. I only asked one question, and it came out before I could stop myself. "And what about me, Daniel? When do I get to want something again?" He didn't answer. Just looked down at his hands, like the question had been waiting for him all along. The rain started again outside, soft, steady. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to be one of those fights we'd patch up in the morning. This was the kind that changes everything. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the way Daniel's hands trembled against the coffee mug. How his voice shook, like he already knew the damage his words would cause. By morning, the house looked the same pale light through the curtains, the same quiet hum of the fridge, but it didn't feel the same. Something invisible had shifted, like gravity had changed direction overnight. He'd left early for work, leaving only a note on the counter, "We'll talk tonight." I stared at it for a long time. The words were too neat, too careful, like he'd rehearsed them. When you've been married 21 years, you build a kind of rhythm. You know who starts the coffee, who folds the laundry, who forgets to lock the door. But what no one tells you is how fragile that rhythm really is. How easily one sentence can throw everything off beat. That day, I tried to stay busy. I cleaned things that didn't need cleaning, rearranged the spice rack, answered work emails I'd been ignoring for weeks. But every few minutes, my mind went back to her name, Claire. Who was she, really? I pictured someone younger, obviously, maybe with bright eyes and a kind of confidence that comes from never having to question if you're still desirable. Maybe someone who laughed easily. By late afternoon, I found myself scrolling through Daniel's work website, hovering over the team page like a stranger. When I finally saw her photo, I froze. She didn't look like what I expected. Not glamorous, not trying too hard, just ordinary. The kind of person who probably remembered birthdays and always brought snacks to meetings. That almost made it worse. When Daniel came home that evening, he looked tired, the kind of tired that isn't about sleep. We moved around each other quietly, the way people do when they're afraid to touch something fragile. At dinner, he didn't bring it up. Neither did I. But the silence between us had weight now, like an object sitting in the middle of the table. Finally, I said, "So about last night," he put down his fork and sighed. I meant what I said. I need you to hear me before you decide how to feel about it. The way he said that, before you decide how to feel, made something cold settle in my chest. I didn't answer. just nodded, because words didn't seem safe anymore. He looked at me then, and there was something almost pleading in his eyes, like he wasn't sure if he was asking for forgiveness or permission. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized I didn't actually know what he was capable of asking me for. He didn't ask right away. For 2 days, Daniel acted like everything was normal, making breakfast, watering the plants, asking if I needed anything from the store. The kind of small talk that felt almost cruel in its normalcy. But something in the air had changed. Every touch felt heavier, every silence longer. It was like waiting for a storm that refused to break. On the third night, I found him sitting in the living room with the lights off. Just the flicker of the TV reflecting across his face. Not really watching, just sitting there. "Daniel," I said quietly, standing in the doorway. "We can't just keep pretending nothing happened." He didn't look up right away. Then he said, "I know. I just don't know how to start." He paused, rubbing his palms together. "Well, I said the other night about opening things up, it wasn't about leaving you. It's about saving us." That word, saving, landed like a stone in my stomach. He went on, explaining how he felt we'd stopped seeing each other, how life had become schedules and bills and routines. He said he wanted to find a way back to us, but every example he gave sounded less like love and more like escape. I listened, but somewhere inside, something was unraveling. Because while he spoke, I realized there were things I hadn't said either. Things I'd buried years ago just to keep the peace. Like the job offer I'd turned down for him. The art classes I never took. The nights I lay awake wondering when we stopped touching just to feel close, not out of obligation. And now he was the one restless, looking for something new, while I was the one still standing in the ruins of what we'd built. When I finally spoke, my voice came out smaller than I meant. "You keep saying this is about us, but it sounds like it's about you." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw guilt flicker across his face. Just for a second, then it was gone. Before either of us could say more, his phone buzzed on the coffee table. He didn't answer, but I saw the name light up the screen. "Claire." He turned the phone over, face down, and said softly, "It's not what you think." But that's the thing about lies. It's not the words that give them away. It's the way the voice cracks on the ones meant to sound calm. I didn't argue, didn't cry, just said, "Then tell me what it is." And he took a long breath, the kind people take before saying something they can't take back. He didn't speak for a long time after that. The kind of silence that fills every corner of a room, heavy enough to make you forget how to breathe. Finally, Daniel said, "I want to try something different." His voice was low, almost cautious, like he was talking to a wild animal that might bite. I sat down across from him, my hands gripping the edge of the couch cushion. "Different how?" He hesitated, then said, "I think we should invite Claire over. I want us to talk. Together." At first, I thought I'd misheard him. Invite her. Into our home. Into our marriage. The idea was so absurd, it almost sounded funny, until I realized he meant it. "You're not serious," I said. "I am," he whispered. "I don't want to hide things anymore. I want everything out in the open." There it was, his wild request. Not about love, not about betrayal. About transparency. About breaking whatever fragile line still separated our world from hers. My heart was pounding so hard it drowned out the rest of his words. I just kept staring at him, wondering how we'd gone from quiet dinners and Netflix reruns to this. "You think this will save us?" I asked. He nodded, almost helplessly. "I think it might help you understand me. Help us find a way forward." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only sound left that didn't hurt. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just sat in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, tried to imagine what kind of woman agrees to meet the wife of the man she's been texting late at night. By morning, Daniel had already sent her a message. I saw the notification pop up when he left his phone on the kitchen counter. He didn't try to hide it this time. All day, I replayed the words I'd read. She said yes. "She'll come by tomorrow evening." Tomorrow. It didn't feel real. I cleaned the house 3 times, as if the smell of lemon polish could somehow erase what was coming. Every sound, the faucet dripping, the clock ticking, felt louder, sharper, like the house itself was bracing for impact. When Daniel came home that night, he tried to act normal again. But his eyes gave him away. They always did. We didn't talk much, just moved around each other carefully, like strangers rehearsing politeness. Before bed, I asked one quiet question, and what happens after she leaves? He looked at me for a long time, his expression unreadable. Then he said, that depends on how it goes. I turned off the light, and for the first time in 21 years, I didn't reach for his hand. I thought I was ready. I wasn't. When the doorbell finally rang the next evening, the sound felt like a jolt through my chest. Daniel was already standing near the door, straightening his shirt, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. His hands kept brushing his hair back, again and again, like a tell he couldn't control. I wanted to say something, maybe to stop it, maybe to delay it, but all that came out was, you invited her. You open it. He did, and there she was. Claire looked ordinary. Too ordinary. A soft smile, a plain coat, a small gift bag in her hand. Like someone arriving for a friendly dinner, not the conversation that might tear a marriage in half. Hi, she said, her voice gentle. Thank you for letting me come. I didn't trust my own voice enough to answer, so I just nodded and stepped aside. The air in the house felt wrong, too still, too polite. Daniel tried to ease the tension, offering tea, making small talk about the weather, about traffic. I watched them, every glance between them, every pause that lasted a fraction too long. Finally, I set my cup down. So, I said quietly, we're all here. What is this exactly? Daniel shifted uncomfortably. I just thought we should all be honest. No secrets. Claire's eyes moved to me then. Not defensive, not smug. Just steady. He told me you knew, she said. I didn't want to meet like this, but he insisted. Something in her tone made me look at Daniel. He told you I knew? I asked slowly. He hesitated. I told her we talked about it, that you were open to discussing it. The silence that followed was colder than anything I'd ever felt. You lied, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. I didn't mean, but I stood up before he could finish. You didn't mean to, or you didn't want to face what you'd already done? Claire looked between us, clearly realizing this wasn't what she'd been told. I think maybe I should go, she whispered, but Daniel stopped her. No, he said, almost desperate. You both deserve the truth. He turned to me, then, finally looking straight into my eyes. It wasn't just about her. It was about me, about what I've been hiding from you for years. My heartbeat was in my throat. What are you talking about? He took a long breath. I've been seeing a therapist. For months. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to admit how lost I felt. Claire's not just someone from work. She's part of the program. She helps with the sessions. That's how it started. It didn't make sense at first. Not the words, not the way he said them. You brought her here, I said quietly. To what? Make me part of your therapy? He nodded, his voice breaking. I needed you to hear everything. With her here, I didn't know how else to do it. The room spun for a moment, like the air itself tilted. Claire looked down, uncomfortable, clearly not expecting this either. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't about a wild affair. It was about a man trying to confess something bigger, something still buried. But before I could ask, his phone buzzed again on the table. He froze when he saw the screen. It wasn't Claire this time. It was a message from an unknown number, one line that changed everything. She knows. You have to tell her before I do. Daniel's face went pale when he saw the message. He just stared at it, frozen, as if the words themselves could burn. Who is that? I asked. He didn't answer right away, just kept staring, his thumb hovering over the screen. Claire leaned forward slightly, her voice low. Daniel, what is it? He swallowed hard. It's someone from before. Someone I thought was gone. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Gone? What are you talking about? He finally looked at me then, really looked, and something in his eyes made the air between us shift. Regret, fear, maybe both. I wasn't honest with you, he said quietly. It wasn't just the therapy or Claire. I've been hiding something about the business. About the money. My chest tightened. Money. He nodded. A year ago, when things got slow at work, I borrowed from someone I shouldn't have. I thought I could fix it before you found out. But it got out of hand. He gestured helplessly toward the phone. That text, it's from them. They know I've been trying to back out. The words hit me in pieces. I've been bracing for heartbreak, not this. Claire sat back, her expression shifting from guilt to shock. Daniel, You didn't tell me that was what this was about. I didn't tell anyone, he said. I thought if I could just talk to both of you, maybe find a way to start being honest again, I could stop lying to everyone. I stood there, gripping the edge of the table to steady myself. All the anger I'd carried for days suddenly collided with something else. Fear. You brought me into this, I whispered. Into your mess, your guilt, your secrets. You didn't want to save us, Daniel. You wanted to save yourself. He took a shaky breath. You're right. His voice cracked. But I need you to hear me. I'm done hiding. I'll fix it, whatever it takes. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Then, softly, Claire said, You're going to have to tell her everything. The person who sent that text, they're not bluffing. Daniel nodded, almost defeated. I could feel the ground shifting again, but this time, not from betrayal, from the weight of what came next. I wanted to scream, or cry, or just walk out, but instead I did something I didn't expect. I reached for his hand. He looked at me, confused. Then start now, I said. No more lies. Not one. His phone buzzed again. He glanced down, and his face went white. The message said, Too late. She already knows everything. And for the first time, I realized she didn't mean me. For a moment, no one moved. The room felt smaller, like the walls were leaning in. Daniel just kept staring at his phone, his thumb trembling. Who is it? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer wouldn't make sense. He finally whispered, It's from someone named, he paused, Mara. The name didn't mean anything to me, but Claire's reaction did. She looked stunned, like she'd been hit by something invisible. I know that name, she said quietly. Mara's the director of the program. She's the one who connected us. She said you were recovering. Recovering from what? I asked, my voice barely steady. Daniel let out a slow breath. From the breakdown I had last year. The panic attacks, the medication. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to see me like that again. Weak. Lost. I just stared at him. All those nights I thought he was working late. All those half-conversations that never quite made sense. They started fitting together like broken glass, finally snapping into place. You weren't cheating, I said slowly. You were hiding. He nodded, his eyes wet. I was scared you'd stop loving me if you knew how bad it got. I thought pretending to be in control was the only way to keep us together. Claire looked down, her voice soft. Mara's worried about you, Daniel. That message, she's not threatening you. She's asking you to come back. You stopped showing up to sessions. He sank into the couch, exhausted. I thought if I could fix things here first, I'd have a reason to get better. I sat beside him, the anger I'd been holding finally loosening its grip. You don't need to earn getting better, I said. You just need to start telling the truth. For the first time in weeks, he smiled, small, fragile, but real. We talked for hours that night, about the lies, the fear, the distance that had crept in between us like fog. Claire stayed for a while, helping us untangle the mess we'd both made. When she left, she looked at me and said quietly, You two still have something worth saving. Just start from honesty. After she was gone, Daniel turned to me. Do you think we can? I thought about everything. The coffee that went cold, the silence that stretched too long, the man sitting beside me who finally stopped pretending. I don't know, I said honestly, but at least now we're starting in the right place. He nodded, reaching for my hand this time. Outside, the rain had started again, soft, familiar, steady. Maybe it wasn't a new beginning, but it was something closer to the truth. And that, after everything, felt like enough.